Hello, and welcome to Relative Pitch, a podcast about music, culture, and society from a young perspective. Our initiative is to bring fresh new ideas to the music field. Here are your hosts, Lauren Green, Anthony Morris, and Michael Brown. So what do you guys think about the COVID relief bill, the package, and everything that's been coming out, and the vaccinations? I think Anthony have you gotten yours yet, or are you about to get yours?
I get mine literally the day that this episode comes out, I will be getting it. So, all right, the first dose. Let me just break something down about teachers in Florida. So, teachers in Florida, the governor has rules, and then the federal government has rules. In Florida, the governor has only allowed teachers 50 and above to get it. And honestly, like I understand, like I get it, but like the teacher force is there's a lot of us who are under the age of 50. And so luckily the federal government guideline says that any teacher can get it. So those places like Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Publix, Sam's, they are following the federal government guidelines. So I was lucky to get an appointment at Walgreens. So I will be getting finally my first dose of vaccination. And like it's funny because all of my family is vaccinated except for me. So I'm the last one. It's crazy.
Yeah, my mom just got hers as well. Michael, have you gotten yours out in Michigan yet?
No, and I want to tell you why I am upset. Okay.
Uh-oh.
I live in Kalamazoo, Michigan. The Pfizer plant, which Joe Biden came to, is 20 minutes one way of either left, right, south, up, north, west, town. I don't know. I'm upset. I'm really pressed.
Why would you? Can you just go walk up?
Oh yeah, and get shot.
Well, that's what you're trying to do, right? Get the shot.
Oh yeah. I think I'm gonna get met with like 30 bullets with it, but yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's a federal building.
And they can literally give me my dang shot.
Maybe.
Also, I'm happy about the stimulus because the United States of America finally accept that adult dependents need money too, and not just the people under 17. Why you need money when you're under 17? Like, yes, but like
how they wouldn't think that dependents, even if you were in school, in college, wouldn't need. I'm like, some people are claimed by their parents who they're not supported by their parents. Yeah, no, it was a whole mess. But thankfully now we're getting our money. It's amazing.
Also, for people who are kind of in the boat that I am, where you were a dependent, but you have a job now and you're filing your own taxes, just know when you file your taxes, there is a section that says, did you get the past stimulus checks? Girl, you collect your money. Collect your money right then and there. So if you're in that boat, make sure you get your money when you file your taxes. And guess what? That's an extra bonus on whatever your tax return be. I'm pretty sure Walmart going to have some upcoming sales very soon, and every other store is going to have some sales. So just collect your money.
The Michael Foundation is always accepting awards.
No, but I mean, I want to really ask, what do you think about Texas choosing to reopen at this point? Do you think, we're like, well, people are getting vaccinated, the rates are maybe, it's going down, not too many positive tests. Like, what do you feel about it? Do you think it's premature? Do you think it makes sense?
Multiple states before now have already lifted the mask ban. Like Texas is the first one to go 100% open, but people have already lifted the mask ban. But like, I think there's 2 or 3 states before Texas. So, that's just where people want to go. And I understand that small businesses are suffering and other people are suffering, but we're all suffering. And if we don't just do the right thing, it's going to stay here in different forms of just not just the COVID we have now. It could mutate like everything else is mutated.
Yeah, I think that I believe it is a little too premature. We're still in the whole Ponderosa. And just because Panini, Ponderosa, Panoramic, we are still in it. And I think I'm so glad people are getting the vaccine. I just think if the governor would have waited a couple more months first, and especially a big state like Texas, but I will also have to we have to realize that Texas is also a big, more conservative state, and as factual things, more conservative people really haven't caught on the fact of we're in a whole, panini, okay? And so, and that is, so I get exactly why he did it because he was speaking for the people, and I'm pretty sure those people said it. I mean, down here in Florida, I promise you, like we have conversation, and I'm just like, everybody over here chilling. Like everybody's out in the streets at Disney World, at Universal. Everybody is out. And I've been teaching every single day since August, while some people have been seeing their kids since March, a year ago now. And so down here in Florida, it's been completely different than the rest of the world. And I sometimes I have to remember that just because I live in Florida, crazy Florida, it is not that way everywhere. But I still do feel like it's a little bit premature.
I have a question for y'all. This is kind of off topic, but still on topic. Do y'all be watching movies and TV shows and they're not wearing masks and you're like, we in COVID, but it's literally not COVID.
It's like a PTSD type of thing. It really is like a PTSD.
Because I was watching this show, people are hugging up each other, kissing each other, and then I'm like, well, stop. What you doing?
No, it's the club like party scenes for me that really make my skin crawl.
Can we
top of each other?
Look, can we talk about it? Can we just talk about it real quick? All-Star Weekend in Atlanta. Like what?
ATL.
Ago now.
They got their tires no more either.
Nobody had masks. Nobody had any type of, like, I was going to say protection, but they didn't have that either.
But they didn't have tires either, apparently.
And people are driving up to Atlanta in U-Hauls, staying in U-Hauls all night. And then when the weekend was over, starting GoFundMe talking about, I need money to get back to where I live. We are in a whole, Jesus, y'all. We are in a whole pandemic, okay? That is the real word, pandemic, okay? And y'all are out here just partying, busting it wide open, and we have a Pan Am. I'm sick.
I love the name that we can't, like Paloma, Pacific.
A Pan Am. I look, Pan Am reminds me very of Hunger Games. We are in Hunger Games right now.
Oh my gosh.
And we're not in Hunger Games, because if we were Hunger Games, I'll be winning. Because I'm a big old man to be pushing around these little folk.
You are probably in District 12.
What district is that?
Oh, wait, maybe District 11.
Which one is that?
Whichever one Katniss was working and had the little loaf of bread. That's the district.
I think I'm pretty sure that was 12, right? I'm pretty sure that was 12. I have no idea.
District 13 was the lost one.
Right. Oh, you're right.
But talking about Hunger Games, doesn't that go right into some of Wagner?
I mean, obviously, the way that Wagner is, it just seems kind of not utopic. I feel like that's too positive. But what's like post society, post moral,
a whole fantasy.
Yeah. Just immoral fantasy, like Westworld, but like worst, and old. So Michael, what was your chapter this week?
So as it reads, my chapter was chapter 11, Ring of Power, Revolution, and Russia. The reason I chose this chapter this week is because I love Russia, love their way of playing. We like it. It's always on the top. We going all the way. But it was a nice little read. I enjoyed it. And I got some stuff from it. So in 1883, that was the year of Wagner's death. He finally died. Dead. Doornail. And William Archer, who is a critic, notices George Bernard Shaw at the British Library with a French edition of Das Kapital, which is something Marx read earlier that year or later, a couple of years before, and a score of Tristan and Isolde. I thought this was a little weird, a little suspicious, but we shall continue. George Shaw was a staunch leftist who saw no conflict between Wagner's romantic mythology and Marx's historical materialism. Crazy. This ideology had to have raised eyebrows in 1883, but seems even more surprising now given Hitler's ideas and plans that we now know and now realize. So what like threw me off so much is we associate Wagner with extreme right, Hitler, all that stuff. And now we're like throwing in some left. So my question to y'all is, why do you think both extreme right and left agreed with Wagner and his success in plugging music into their message?
I mean, I think everyone at this time understands how, people in those situations like Hitler, would utilize Wagner in his politics. They understood that music and art in general touches people. And so, Wagner being as decadent as his music is and all, it speaks to a whole group of people with whatever message you want to give to it. It can be inspirational. It can be, like used to put people down. I mean, it's used in whatever capacity that you want it to be used, but I think it's versatile. And I think that's why people from both sides are able to use Wagner and whatever agenda that they may have.
Yeah, and I just to piggyback on that, I think every group wants a theme music, like why would you watch a movie if it doesn't have good theme music? It's not the same thing. And I think both the left and the right found um themselves in the music. And also it's very relative to them. So just like when we watch a movie, we see ourselves portrayed in whatever it is, whether it's the good character, the bad character, whatever it may be. I think both sides kind of saw themselves in Wagner's music, and it was very heroic type of music. And of course, that's their theme music. They want to be strong. They want to have this end goal. And I think Wagner music really spoke to them in that way. In game. Absolutely. I read your lips.
I love how you did that, because when you said in goal, I was like, in game. I am Iron Man. Okay, anyways, so moving on. The young Wagner fascinated the left in large measures because of his emphatic vagueness, as he dabbled in various ideologies. I can agree with this. Wagner never directly mentioned Marx, but made references to communism throughout his works. Fernando Laszlo, we're going to go with that, was one of the most committed among Marx's contemporaries to Wagner. He was mesmerized by Wagner so much, he wrote this on page 435. I am still in endless excitement like a foaming sea, and days and weeks will pass before I can concentrate the soul sufficiently undivided upon the arid statistical and economic investigations to which my next period is devoted. He was so mesmerized by the text of Lohengrin, which is, I think, one of Anthony's favorites. Here's where it goes left a little bit. Even though Laszlo was very appreciative, very complimentary of the works, Wagner brushed it off because he saw Laszlo as a Germanic Judaic, going back with the Jew stuff, that he doesn't like Jewish people or the culture and stuff that we referenced in, I think, all the chapters so far. In defiance, and this is where we can get a little bit more background of Laszlo. In defiance of Marx, Laszlo believed that revolutionaries should engage in parliamentary politics rather than wait for capitalism to collapse. This is going into the more philosophical about what Marx believed and about other contemporaries believed at the time. I just want to give you all a little bit more background. So a party that he influenced a lot was the Social Democratic Workers' Party, which is now the modern Social Democrats Party of Germany, which references Wagner's operas and works like Rienzi and Tannhauser a lot, and they use them as a useful tool among themselves, even after Wagner brushed him off. So my last question to y'all is, why is his music referenced so much even after Wagner was so dismissive toward him? Because of his Germanic Judaism.
I think there's a level of respect that you can still have for someone even when they disrespect you, which is hard to like even say, because I can't imagine still having that amount of respect for someone who truly just doesn't like me because of like who I am. So not like I said something to offend his mother or anything, but just because I am who I am, that's a problem. But I think they saw past the ugly of Wagner, which there's a lot of ugly of Wagner, and they just look straight to the music. And it's this whole idea of, can you separate the art from the artist? And in this sense, I think he's saying he can, and obviously he did.
Yeah. I personally just I can't see it, because it's just like, this man really don't like you just because of the way you were born, like, just flat out. And I also think like people back then, they were really of a forgiving spirits, that I think over time we haven't, like, does anybody forgive anybody anymore nowadays? So I think of that time, I think it was just everyone kind of forgave each other, and just, if you were the racist and you don't like me for being me, okay, I'm gonna forgive you for it, and I'm gonna still use your music, I'm still like you. But it's like, you don't like me for who I am. But I mean, I just think, that's just the society of it all. It's from that.
I mean, that can even still now be referenced and seen when we put somebody on such a high pedestal, and then we go in their closet, we find the bones. People are very easy to cover those bones back up and close the closet door again.
Especially when they are very high on the pedestal. And it's not just a couple people putting them on the pedestal, it's like a whole firm putting them on a pedestal. And we have seen that recently with Britain's Royal Society. And so we've seen that, and how for a very long time things have just gotten swept under the rug. And it's like, I really believe now is the time where it needs to stop, both in every single thing of the world. We need to stop building these people up, because just like you, they bleed red.
They put their pants on one leg at a time. That's what my granddad used to tell me every morning.
And so
some of them can't put their pants on themselves, first of all.
right. And do you really want to be told what to do from a person that can't even put their own underwear on, girl? Come on now.
If they wear underwear, we don't know if they're that clean.
Right. Well, I mean, it's hello. That's all I'm saying. Hello.
Hey, so that's the only thing I have to say is like, just before you start to worship somebody, you need to know exactly what's going on, okay? And every single door that they have. Because I promise you, when you go behind that screen, just like Wizard of Oz, when they uncovered who was back there, that wasn't a wizard, that was a man. And that's that. But was that all, Michael?
That was everything. And now I'm going to pass it on to my lovely co-host, Anthony Morris, for the next chapter.
Wow, thank you. Thank you. I really feel like if people are watching TikTok, y'all know those videos where like the news anchor is like, can you follow, and like start reading the prompts? That's how I feel. Okay. Just want to let everybody in of what I'm thinking of. So I had the pleasure of reading chapter 12, which is entitled Flying Dutchman, which we all know is one of Wagner's biggest works. And that has kind of been in a lot of more popular things. Like, I first heard of Flying Dutchman in SpongeBob when I was like 3 years old. And so Didn't know that, was a whole opera about it. So it is entitled that, and it's because of really three different contemporaries of the early 1900s. They really referenced a lot of that. And one of the first people that I will talk about is James Joyce, his book Ulysses, which is about Ulysses and a wandering Jew. Which here's my thing, Wandering Jew. This book came out, I think, in 1922. And I think we all know Ulysses is just the Roman version of Odysseus. And we all read that book, or we read the story, the Odyssey. And so it tells the story in a more 20th century viewpoint. And it referenced a lot of Wagner's works in it. And that brings me to my next question is, here are contemporary writers that always are referencing Wagner. Do y'all think, like, I know he's big, but do you really think Wagner really knew what was going to happen for himself when he died? Did you think he wanted his material to keep living on through all of these different mediums?
I think that Wagner played to what he knew was wanted during the time. And so, what I mean by that is, if he's seeing that there's a trend of people wanting decadence and just over romanticization and all these, just escape from reality, I think is the main thing. And I think that's why, especially, literary people in that field really like hold on to him because of his, he doesn't care. It's all there. It's just reality. It's fantasy. It's everything you want to put yourself within. And so, no, it doesn't surprise me. Do I think he knew exactly what, like, his impact, what it was going to be? I don't think anyone could ever fully know that after they're, before they do leave. It's a whole thing of, the actor, after someone dies, their CDs are on sale like crazy. Their movies are sold out. Like whenever, Chadwick Boseman, whenever he passed away, I couldn't find any Black Panther thing, like DVDs anywhere on Amazon, or it didn't matter, which is unfortunate. It's like, why do we have to wait until that person's, has left us to lift them up? But no, I don't think Wagner knew exactly the impact he was going to have on society post death.
I agree with Lauren, because he just, and I think one part of the reason he's still so referenced and was referenced is because of, he just used like mythology, and that stuff never dies. There's video games. When I used to game, was about mythology. We learn about mythology in school. It's something it's easily referenced to. It's not like the Bible, but is sort of similar to the Bibles and their stories. And if you go into the next little part after Romantic period, the maximization, that period, the next one, the Mahler and Strauss uses like a religion alive. So it just depends on where you are. And I think he didn't know what he was going to do, but he was like, I'm going to do this because I want to do this. And I think that authenticity of him just wanting to do it and doing it is another reason why it's still alive.
Also, how ironic that Joyce's book is about Ulysses and the Wandering Jew. Like, it is kind of poking a little fun at something like Wagner, because we know the only, and I think it follows the same stereotype that Wagner really put Jews into his things, always were more less fortunate and all of this. Like, it's very ironic that even at the turn of the century, it's still, there was still hatred against Jewish people, which we've had that conversation before of like, why? Why is all this hate? Where is this hate coming from? But that was a little bit about Joyce's book. The next book that this chapter talks about is called The Wasteland, and it is by Eliot. And it basically is the first half of a two-part essay titled The Story of Tristan and Isolde in Modern Poetry, which basically just it is a modern storytelling of a good old Wagner story. And I'm gonna read you just a little poem that was actually word from word from Tristan and Isolde. And the poem is Fresh blows the wind toward the homeland, my Irish child. Where do you linger? That literally comes from Act One, the opening act of Tristan, and it is quoted directly into Eliot's poetry. And my that brings me to my next question is here we go on a whole nother medium. We went from, of course, just reading novel books to now poetry, and Wagner makes an appearance in this as well. Do you think that people keep referring to Wagner? It's because he's just bigger than life, and he just kind of transcend that decadence of who he was. It just kind of transcend life, but also part two of that question, why don't you think any of the music why haven't we talked about a lot of musicians who played his music during that early 1900s?
I think that any artist, if they're great enough, has the ability to step from their threshold into other realms of art. And so I'm not surprised that Wagner's influencing non-musicians during this period.
Definitely.
We reference Sidney Lanier, who was an American poet. I think 4 chapters ago. You can. I'm sorry if I'm wrong, but I mean that shows that it's not just like now. In the chapter we're reading, it's not during that time period. It's more than just that, and I just think it's like W.E.B. Du Bois said. He's like, if you can listen to Wagner and not get anything from it, you're not really listening. You're not really understanding. And so I that's true. I think anything you can, that's with anything that's like a Bible story, again, like a mythology story, you can take whatever you want from it and turn it into your own. That's like when we go listen to the symphony orchestras or whatever piece. Like I might not like to sit and listen to a piece, but I'm gonna try to take myself on a journey. Like Mahler 1 or 3, it's not huge for the trumpet, so usually I'm not gonna go in there like, oh my god, I'm gonna hear these excerpts, blah 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 blah. So I have to actually like listen to the music more than just the part that I want to hear. You know what I mean? So I think it's just taking whatever and turning it into your own journey is another reason he is so often referenced. I think that answered your question. If it didn't, I dropped the mic.
That's okay. But it did. Thank you. And the last person that we talked about is actually Virginia Woolf, which I remember talking about Virginia Woolf in like, I don't know, some lit class that I took years ago. And so hearing about her, and I always remember her being a heavy feminist author in the early 20th century. And something that I was reading in the book, and I'm gonna read for y'all really quickly. And it says, she was golden. She was the golden age of women writers. Male fiction has run its course. She says, virility has now become a self-conscious men, that is to say, and now writing only with the male side of their brains. Later, she says, and it says, she sounds curiously like Wagner when she says that one must be woman manly or man womanly. That is the androgynous mind. Some marriage of opposites has to be consummated. So now, in the early 20th century, we hear a lot about feminism and women authors and poets and musicians, everything like that. And when the part that really tickled me was where it says one must be woman manly or man womanly. I want to hear when you hear that, what comes to mind when you hear something like that? And then I'll say what I immediately thought about.
I mean, no matter what, they basically want men to have a part in like feminism is what I'm hearing. You know, they don't want just a woman who's a woman and does woman things womanly. They want, you know, at least a woman who is manly, which is very interesting. I'm like, what? It's I wonder why that's something that they want so bad. But you see a lot in like, I guess, sculptures and everything. You'll have these women who are like actually very like masculine, and it's very interesting as to why they would want that. But overall, all it just says is they still find masculine traits superior is all that's really saying to me, is that that's what's better for them. They don't want femininity in any sense of the word, even when it's a woman, you know.
Can you, for me, real quick, repeat that whole like woman, manly, like repeat that?
Yeah, it says one must be woman manly or man womanly.
I hearing that, I hear that they want people that, or they want somebody who's in touch with both their feminine side and masculine side. Like not just a woman who is only in touch with her feminine side, or a man only in touch with his masculine side. It's like a balancing act almost. But that's just like that's my initial no thinking about it response, because it mentions both of them. And back in the day, we always said man, masculine, woman, feminine. And just lately, not lately, but we've been breaking those like masculine and feminine boundaries lately.
So
So
that's actually exactly like where I had thought about is that I think before this time, every author, musician, painter, it all came from the male ego. It all came from the male point of view. And early in that chapter, it says the male fiction has run its course, meaning this only male dominated point of view is done. It's over. And so when I read that, must be woman manly or man womanly, meaning a woman will have these more manlier, ideals, or a man would have a more woman ideals. And so that you see it as more holistically rather than from one side or the other. And it really just speaks to how even somebody who is a feminist, as Virginia Woolf kind of found that in Wagner, found it in his stuff to be as a motivation. And we talked about feminism in Wagner some chapters ago. And so this is just keeping that same type of theme throughout. And that really kind of sums up my part of the book, chapter 12, and it was great. Lauren, what about your chapter?
So I decided to change my approach to this chapter because I think there's more to it than I initially, thought. This chapter 13, is called Siegfried's Death, Nazi Germany, Thomas Mann. Okay, so obviously there's a lot of talk of Thomas Mann, the novelist within this, the books that he wrote. There are a lot that are talked about within this chapter. And Nazi Germany, we know that it's going to be involving Hitler and Hitler's usage of Wagner and the influence that Wagner had within the Nazi regime. Siegfried was kind of thought to be this young hero boy. Everyone like is rooting for Siegfried, and Siegfried, for those of you who don't know, we may have talked about this earlier. It's the third opera within the Ring cycle, that Wagner's Ring cycle. And so Siegfried, the character is supposed to be this young hero boy who everyone's rooting for. He's the moral, he's a tenor. So there you go. That's all you need to know about this, is he is the tenor. So he's supposed to win. Also, Wagner named his son Siegfried. And so the really funny thing about this is we were talking about how much reach, how much impact that Wagner had on others. I think a little bit of it was Wagner was almost obsessed with himself and the things that he did in his life, the things that he contributed to his works, and everything about him was his art. And it makes sense. I think that's why it's so potent in everything that he touched around him. It was this over decadence, this over exaggeration of everything that he did. And, first of all, one of the things I want to talk about, I just want to go straight to Hitler because this is what this is all going to link to at the end. So within this, there's a talk of single bullet theory within this chapter, which is this is the one bullet that did it, that killed whoever, whatever, right? So basically, it was a discussion and the idea that there was a single bullet that caused Hitler to be Hitler, to do what he did. Now, is this really something we can agree that there was one incident that caused it, or would you rather say it was a slew of events, incidents, lifestyle things that happened, and then there was maybe a change in the flip of the century, or a change, whenever things happen within wars, it's not like someone just immediately wins. It's something that happens, and then it goes to, okay, now this side is for sure going to win. So what do you think about the single bullet theory and things that you've seen in general? Is it usually just one thing that causes something like this, especially of this caliber? This isn't like you getting a car or like a dog or, getting a plant. This was like the Holocaust. I don't think we can say that there was one thing that caused the Holocaust, but what are your thoughts on this?
I think that everything, especially things like this, it is not just one single bullet that does it. But I will say it's a play on words. It's definitely a play on words because I think you could, there's so many things that leads up to it, and that one single bullet finally pushes it over. And so like take like a piece of glass. So a piece of glass, a strong, thick piece of glass. Once you have hit the glass enough, you've now weakened the structure of the glass. So of course that one bullet is going to completely shatter it and completely just make it into a whole bunch of little pieces. But it wasn't just that single bullet that did it. It is all of that beating that happened before any of that one single event happened. And so I think of that same thing. You can also think of a volcano. There's a lot of things going on in a volcano, and then just like that, it's gone. And especially with dealing with World War II, there was a lot of things leading up to that. And starting from Hitler's childhood, that kind of just snowballed. And then, yes, was there probably just one thing that knocked him over and was like, I'm doing this? Yes. But I think it's definitely a play on words when it comes to that.
I agree with Anthony. You can see this in a couple of different ways. So like immediately when you were saying about it, I was like, that's the straw that broke the camel's back. That's one way you can look at it. But also, these are the people who woke up one day and was like, I'm gonna invade Poland. It's a Tuesday morning. I didn't have my latte, so screw it. You know what I mean? So like, it's like there was a lot leading up to it, but one day they were like, it's pretty sunny out. Let me just invade Poland.
I mean, I get this, right? Because it's like the whole thing, you're having a really bad day and you just drop your keys when you're trying to get home and you just start crying. That has happened to me so many times, or like, situations where like I'm late to class, my hair's not great. And then your coffee order is wrong and you're like, I'm not going to class. Like, this is a sign that I'm not supposed to be out of my bed right now and I'm just done. Yeah. So it's not just that one thing that caused it. Yeah, no, I completely get that. That was just an interesting theory, to think about with that, like we could just say like, yeah, this one thing is what caused the Holocaust. But I understand, yeah, at some point, if you keep knocking something off of a table, there's an edge to it. Eventually it's going to come to that edge and it's going to fall off. So continuing this, first of all, I just want to give you this thought that we've talked about this a little bit. Nationalism. So if we want to say anything about the Nazi Party, is that they really liked nationalism. Okay. And that's scary to think that that's still something that we're pushing to this day, is this idea of like, oh, we are German, we are this. And it's just because this is why I'm saying this. Nationalism to a lot of people, especially the Nazi Party and people who supported the Nazi Party, meant that we are the superior everything. Like, this is the superior person to us. we are the superior people. Therefore, if you have superiors, what do you also have to have? You have to have inferiors. And so it's only a matter of time before you start saying, someone should do something about those inferiors. I don't know what yet, but something should happen where we don't have to worry about them anymore. And there's a danger in this love of country, that if we want to call it that, and it still happens to this day, where it's like, oh, we want to protect the traditions and the values of these certain people, of my country. And then by doing that, you are completely saying that no other culture, no other society value has the same or as good of values as you do. You're making a ranking without even trying to. I just wanted to put that out there. And so the next idea I kind of want to talk about is how whenever there was a Beirut festival that happened, and it was one during a time where Hitler attended, or no, I'm so sorry. Well, actually, I believe it was a situation where instead of Wagner memorabilia and all this stuff, it was replaced with, there was like Nazi symbols everywhere, and like Mein Kampf was on display versus one of Wagner's books instead, right? So one thing I wanted to ask is, what do you think about the idea that the Beirut Festival and Wagner himself influenced this level of dedication? Or I'm so sorry, I'm thinking about something completely else. That was my bad. But what do you think about the idea that, like, we now are using this festival for this person to promote this ideal? Like, I mean, I don't know, something about that just felt wrong. I mean, it sounded right, but it felt wrong to me. And it was just, it was an interesting thing to read within this. And like, what do you think about that? What do you think about them saying, okay, well, now Hitler's here, let's kind of put this up here? I mean, was it just fans of it, or why do we think that it's come, like, that was a situation? Or what do you think people's reaction to it was, and how would you have felt, I guess, if you were attending a Beirut festival and you were going around and you saw swastikas everywhere, you saw Mein Kampf on display, and what is it turned into at this point?
Well, I think that if the seed wasn't there in the first place, then it wouldn't have been there anyway. And I mean, when Wagner was alive and the Beirut Festival was going on, I think the seed was already there that it was anti-Jew. And so now that the Nazi Party, it is finally the reign of the Nazi Party, they're like, oh, well, there's prejudice already here. So now it's not like it's a new theory. Now we actually have a book that says, here it is, right here. So it is nothing new. It is something that has always been at this festival, just everybody was kind of hid under covers with it. And so I'm pretty sure everyone that was attending the thing, they knew what was up, because I'm pretty sure there was a lot of very racist rhetoric before then anyway. So it definitely wasn't a new concept to them. And I'm pretty sure those same people were there cheering on whoever and for whoever else.
I can get with that. Like, he did have some not nice things to say about the Jewish culture and people, and he was very like proud of being German. And then Hitler just took it to an extreme, and it just went off the cliff. It's the straw that broke the camel's back. But I would have felt like, I don't think Beirut Festival or whatever needs to be covered in swastikas. You know what I mean? But as Anthony said, if the seed was there, it's like if there's a crack in your foundation, it will break. If there's a goalie in soccer, you can still score. You know what I mean? There's a bunch of these things that you can say, but if the seed was there, then it's probably going to come to fruition.
And I think, and yeah, I apologize for not having it exactly like I wanted to say at first. I was trying to figure out how to phrase it, But what I was getting to was I had a theory that kind of came into my mind whenever I was reading this. And we've talked about how Hitler is such a big admirer of Wagner, how he praised him and how he utilized all of his music, during his political reign. Does that necessarily mean he was an admirer of it, or was he a usurper? Did he see the reach that Wagner had at the time? Did he understand, I could use this just like he has a reach? If I put my name to that, I go with it. How would we know the difference between that? Because you can very much feign admiration, but that turns into obsession. Sometimes an obsession, usually it turns into I want to be said person. And it's a theory that I had never thought about. And it was just whenever because I wrote Hitler Festival down here next to Beirut Festival. And that's what I meant by that, is that now we're seeing this thing that's supposed to be a haven for art and Wagner and everything be turned into this political festival where people are now feeling uncomfortable with it, and things are being pushed politically. What was Hitler really a great admirer of Wagner, or was he merely a usurper who saw through Wagner his works and just wanted to go along for the ride? Like, what do you think about that? I don't think that's a viewpoint that's been, maybe people have had the theory of, oh, well, he saw how the reach, and so he admired it and he used it. What do you think about the idea of it just being like, no, I'm just going to use this?
I can see where you're coming from, because it is true, but the reason why I don't think he was just a user was because he was talking about his admiration and love for Wagner way before he started becoming the person for the Third Reich, the Nazis and stuff. And the fact that he made all of his officers listen to it because he knew, like, I think he was a user, but I think he was more of an admirer. And then it went into the using part because of what he made them do. Like, if you just are using it, you're just using to recruit. He was already recruiting people because he was apparently a charismatic public speaker. Do we know this for true? I don't know, because I wasn't alive. But I think he was more of an admirer that used some of the perks that came along with it.
Yeah, on the same lines, I think he was definitely an admirer because we know that Hitler was a lover of art. And so he definitely loved the music of Wagner. But I do think he also knew how big Wagner's music is and who it really, at the end of the day, resonated with. And again, I go back to the same thing I said earlier of the episode, theme music. He knew he needed theme music for his newly formed party and what it meant or what he wanted it to represent. And I really believe that Hitler saw through admiration that Wagner music would be the theme music for the Nazi party. And that is where they now become intertwined. And that's where even now we cannot really separate it, is because that's exactly what it is for.
So then near the end of it, there's something to reflect on that, you guys and the audience may, take some time to reflect on. Was Wagner really an agent of Nazism, or was he a victim of it? Because, if we're saying, all right, well, he actually did, or Hitler admired the music, and, we don't think he just used it for political reasons, then, can we say that that's Wagner's fault that Hitler chose to use, the music for it now? And then it can go back and say, well, but, Wagner himself had some anti-Semitic thoughts and feelings and beliefs and everything. But then it takes this whole new notion of, okay, if we're saying that, Hitler was not only just an admirer of it, but, he did use it to some point, then I mean, it's hard, right? And it's something it's why we're still playing it, I guess, because we haven't completely written it off. Because they're still doing performances of it. We haven't come to the conclusion that, yeah, we probably should stop playing this person's music. So it's more complicated than, he bad, we stop music. I think it's a little bit more than that. And it sucks that we, couldn't just be like, hey, do you like what they're doing with this? You do like it? Okay, then we're not going to play your music again. He's dead. We can't ask him, if he would have approved of his music being used within the Nazi party. But it's a mystery that will remain a mystery, I think, to all of us. But it's just something to ponder. It was just a nice theory to go, I wonder. But we hope you guys are, enjoying the series. And again, we always say this every episode. We're not here to read it to you. That's plagiarism. If you want to read it, buy it. It's on Amazon or available on other platforms, probably at a Barnes and Nobles if they haven't closed down by now. And so, order it, utilize it. And I love books. That wasn't shade to books, but it was just shade to people because we don't read anymore. Go buy the book. Anyway, so we have one more episode that we will be doing on this series, and we'll be at the end of it. So it'll be a fun little kind of closing to the season in itself, and we have a few more amazing episodes with some awesome guests coming on, and excited to have that, and excited for our summer episodes, which we will talk about later. But we hope everyone stays safe. Hopefully you get your vaccine soon and your stimmies. Hey. And we'll talk to you guys next week. Bye. Thank you for being a part of our conversation. You can learn more and reach out to us at relativepitchpodcast.com. Remember to subscribe to our listening platforms and follow us on our social media. See you next time.